Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Management, a VUCA perspective. We are discussing the core concepts, and as we have now closed the product thinking, design and applications bit, we get into something which is a little more intangible, the services angle, and therefore that is what we'll discuss in module 15, which is today's conversation. I am your host and tour guide on this amazing marketing journey, Siddhi Bhattacharyya. So without further ado, we'll get into the aspects of services which are intangibles, which have a logical or emotional connect with people, which is primarily not put into any sort of tangible sensation through the various five senses that we physically integrate with the world outside. And therefore, services are an expression of what all we can experience, and that really forms the entire envelope of services that we look into. Designing and managing services, therefore, is a much more trickier proposition for marketers, and therefore they have to think much deeper at a more cross-sectional level, and they have to understand human conditions far better. They have to understand how men and women think separately, how children and adults think separately, and how it makes sense to them when they experience something in the form of a service. How do you go about creating exceptional customer experiences is the core question that needs to be answered when it comes to services overall. And today, you have an extremely competitive marketplace, and service excellence therefore has become extremely critical as a differentiator. It not only has to be seen as different, it also has to exude all those abilities of superlative, experiential prowess that any brand must use to keep competition at bay. So companies find it increasingly difficult to distinguish between their physical products because pretty much features start matching next to each other. Innovation and technology becomes the great equalizer also. So therefore, how do you actually differentiate? People look to turning to service differentiation, and that becomes the experiential angle from which people understand how one brand performs better or worse compared to its competition. And there are various factors like on-time delivery, better response to inquiries, quicker resolution of complaints. A lot of factors come into play when it comes to the entire overarching service experience. So top service providers understand that they have advantages coming in very simply from service differentiation, and there's a huge value in creating something which stays with people. It is memorable for customer experiences. And this presentation will explore distinctive characteristics of services. We'll try and understand the nuances behind these, and through that we will examine the new realities of service firms, how and what they face in the world outside, and look at strategies which can help achieve service excellence and explain how service firms can effectively manage quality in terms of the experience that they derive for the consumer. Let's look at the case study of Publix, which was a particular brand, quite old, but it established its service credentials in a certain way, which brought it into the limelight. In terms of origins, it was founded in 1930 by George Jenkins in Winter Haven, Florida. Publix became a new standard for cleanliness and product assortment because what it brought onto its shop floor as offerings, because it was a store, it made that particular thing very clear. And the Great Depression was something it actually tided over. Competitors' shelves went bare, but Jenkins traveled across the country seeking products and gathering ideas how to modernize the business. And since the name was for public, so publics had a particular sustained growth and innovation story which helped build the brand as it went nationwide. Jenkins expanded by acquiring small grocery stores and replaced them with larger modern supermarkets that featured innovations like air conditioning, fluorescent lighting, electric eye doors and terrazzo floors. These things made it seamless, streamlined and also something which enhanced the experience of shopping inside a departmental store. Now, Publix from there operates now over 1200 supermarkets in the US and generates over 35 billion in annual revenue. So, this is the growth story of the brand. And what has helped them win this is a customer first philosophy. The customer first philosophy is something which has always been the central focus of what Publix has been up to. Throughout its history, Publix maintained that philosophy which Jenkins had initiated of treating its employees and customers like family. So, that entire warmth which one actually exudes and one actually receives when they enter a Publix store is something which earned Publix the consistent recognition of the #1 supermarket by the American Customer Satisfaction Index, and they got placed on Fortune's 100 best companies to work for index. So, this and a whole set of awards like these establish the credentials and they establish the way the perception is built around a particular brand and how consumers see them in what particular light and what and how it works in their favor, because the brand and the consistent image that brand projects is something which is liked by consumers over time. So, this is something where the product itself may be housed within the supermarket, but the supermarket really doesn't sell any product. The supermarket has products housed in the space. So, it gives you retail space. It gives you the experience of buying within its retail space, and so therefore, it is offering you that particular consolidation of products within one particular geographic space, which is its service offering. And so therefore, that helps you understand what the nature of services truly is. Now, initially, the first thing you need to understand is that how do you define what a service truly is? A service is an act and that one entity performs and another is essentially receiving it but is intangible for them. They do not get any ownership of anything. There is no physical exchange of goods, but it may not be tied to a physical product is where the entire ball drops. It is an experience which the recipient gains from the giver, and the nature and quality and the quantity of the experience that somebody gains is what defines the nature of the transaction. There are various service sectors. So, within sectors you will see services are provided by government entities, for example, courts, hospitals, the military. Then you've got private players or non-profits which provide you places like museums, you get charities, you get colleges for education, and businesses also provide this in the form of airlines, banks, hotels, insurance companies and such like. So, a lot of services are consumed, maybe equally as much as products, maybe even more so in terms of the value, because these are experiences that people purchase. Lots of service providers abound. Even in manufacturing sectors, there are many workers, maybe computer operators, accountants, legal staff, who are coming in and providing a certain skill set. That skill set is a service offering by that individual and they become service providers. They form a service factory within the entire manufacturing setup, and that supports the goods factory which is able to produce whatever its end product is because of the services it gleans from all these professionals. Retail workers also provide crucial services inside the retail setting. The goods are sold and the transaction is completed by payment because of the selling services of the retailers within their particular space. So let's look at the service spectrum. At the absolute non-tangible end is pure service, which is the highest possible extent, and on the other base level is a pure tangible good, a product. These are products with virtually no services, for example, salt or a fruit or some veggies or buying some sort of a cereal which is straight off the market. These are commodities. So here there is hardly anything which can be put in terms of the service. Maybe packaging is one remote way you can look at introducing service in that particular space. Otherwise, this is pure play tangible good which is being transferred from producer to buyer. Then come tangible goods with services. These are products which have been fashioned into something which can be consumed, and this comes with warranties or support. For example, phones, and maybe even the juice is a product at the end of the day. So all of these, the phone has a warranty of user shelf life, whereas the shelf life of a juice is a few days or a week or so. And with that consumption pattern, you consume products within that particular space. There is a service in the form of the warranty or guarantee which accompanies that particular product. Then there are hybrid offerings. Here there are equal parts goods and services. So restaurants, for example, are part goods in the sense that there is food which you consume, and then there is the service with which you experience the way that food is served to you. So hence restaurants become a hybrid offering where there are equal parts of goods and services being offered. Then there are more skewed towards service offerings and minor goods. So for example, air travel with supporting snacks and drinks. You do not buy the plane, you do not buy the airplane fuel, you do not buy the seat on which you sit. You buy the experience of traveling from point A to point B using the service of sitting in an airplane and flying across. Here, the more money you pay, the higher the level of service you can glean from the provider. And you will get the kind of snacks and drinks and the kind of seating arrangement and the kind of airline support staff that you are paying for. So as the price index goes up, the complexity and the sheer richness of service also expands. And finally, there is purely intangible services, for example, babysitting or therapy or insurance. All of these things may give you a certain sense at the end of the day. Counseling, for example. So all these things are pure play service. They have no physical component, but they are an experience to be had. Once you pass through that particular experience, you will come to know whether you've received a good service or a bad service. So these are things which are at the pure service end of the spectrum. So they can be major or minor component of the company's offering coming at you, and ranges from pure tangible with virtually no accompanying services to pure services that are primarily intangible, as we've seen. And between these extremes lie tangible goods with accompanying services, hybrid offerings, and major services with accompanying minor goods, which we've also discussed. Now, Panera Bread is another example of a hybrid service which received a lot of success. The company started by Ron Shaich and as the cookie jar in 1980. Panera Bread had emerged as a leader in the fast casual restaurant category, combining speed and convenience of fast food with the quality and menu variety of waiter service dining. So it was quick service but with a dine-in kind of experience. So you could have a mix of both worlds. Now the target market and positioning for this was food for people who understand and respond to food. So the quality of the food, the quality of produce going into the food, the care with which that food was being prepared and dished out and served, and the care with which you were being courted to have it. All of these things created an experience which was selling fresh, real food at reasonable prices, but with that little coating of getting you there and having that unpretentious experience of having good food. And that unpretentious atmosphere, no table service, but no time limit, encouraged the customers to linger, to stay and experience that particular food. Now here, there was innovation and social conscience as well. With the slogan, live consciously, eat deliciously, this is what they believed in as a brand and this is what they communicated ahead to consumers. Panera leads social initiatives through the Panera Bread Foundation and collaborates with Feeding America, where donations are sent to hunger relief agencies, and the company also boosted digital spending and provided a successful loyalty program, proceeds again going to the charity as we know of. So, in terms of service benefit categories, how does one actually cluster them in various spaces? You've got search based benefits. Here, characteristics the buyer can evaluate before purchase are exhibited. For example, there are visible features, there are specifications which must be met by the end of the product, and there are various price points comparable to competition and what have you. So, therefore, that helps you define certain outer periphery of the particular service which you can search for it and find it. Then there are experience benefits. So, here characteristics that the buyer can evaluate only after purchase. For example, the service quality, the ease of use and the level to which you've been satisfied as a customer. So, all of these aspects, like a massage for example. Now, they may promote themselves as the greatest massage parlor in a particular geography, or a gym which says it has the best trainers, or maybe a dietitian who says they can get you back to ship-shape state in a few weeks. Once you go through their process, once you go and experience what they have on offer, is only when you will be able to understand the quality, how easy it was to follow their regimen or whatever they offered you, and how satisfied did you come out of the entire transaction. So, these are experience benefits, and then there are credence benefits. Here, characteristics which the buyer finds hard to evaluate even after the consumption. For example, professional expertise of certain consultants. Now, you may have found certain business success after taking the consultation of a specific expert, but will you attribute it entirely to the instructions that they gave you, the way they mentored you? And if, let's say, it takes long time to become effective, does it necessarily mean that they should be credited with all of it? Are you able to clearly decide in your mind that this much and no more should be credited to them? There are a lot of hidden value aspects here which makes it difficult to attribute it to one particular starting point from which you can understand this was what created all of what I am experiencing at the moment. So, there are implications of service evaluation, and these propose certain amount of challenges for consumers. There is word of mouth reliance, which is primarily seen as the most effective because they come straight from the horse's mouth. People who have experienced it honestly are talking about it, and that gives a lot of pause to actually reflect and believe that this is what the truth is about that end experience. So, here service consumers generally rely more on word of mouth than advertising due to the difficulty in evaluating services before a purchase. Quality queue dependence. Here consumers rely heavily on the price to make a call. They make mental adjustments as to the price and think whether a higher price commands more quality or a lower price actually is cheaper and the product is also that much more flimsy. It also has provided reputation and physical cues to judge the service quality when they cannot easily evaluate the level of the service itself. Then there is strong provider loyalty. Customers tend to be highly loyal to service providers who satisfy them, as finding and evaluating alternatives requires significant effort. And finally, if there are enough barriers. So, if there is something which differentiates the service, something which makes it challenging for competitors to actually walk into and own that particular space, then you can't entice business away, and there are lasting service relationships with consumers. And these are challenges for competitors, and hence there are high switching costs. So that is also an implication of how you can up your service game. Now, the Carnival cruise was a service which failed, and this is the story of how that happened. The main incident was the Carnival Triumph was on the third day of a 4-day cruise when an engine room fire disabled the boat, leaving 3,100 passengers with limited access to food, water, and restrooms for straight 5 days. Now, the media response to this was the media dubbed it as the poop cruise, as waste was spilled into hallways and decks became insufferably hot because there was no power. The negative publicity damaged the public perception of cruises as a whole. And the company response was the CEO greeted passengers as they disembarked, offering each $500, a free flight home, a trip refund, and credit for another cruise. Despite all of these efforts, booking declined by 20% because this was all seen as giving band-aids. So it was not really something done in honesty, but something which was done to just protect their reputation. Going further, there were certain recovery efforts. Carnival invested 600 million to upgrade its fleet and hired a new VP of Technical Ops to oversee safety initiatives. Years later in 2020, the company faced similar challenges with COVID outbreaks on its ships. So the whole thing came full circle, and all these factors became important in understanding how the company would actually deal with certain calamities of this scale and nature. So there are distinctive characteristics of services, and the most prominent of these is intangibility. You can't really place your finger and say these are the defined features of a service. The problem with that is there is a huge challenge here. Unlike physical products, how can you quantify services which cannot be seen, which cannot be tasted, felt, heard, or even smelled before purchase? So a person getting cosmetic surgery cannot see results beforehand. It will only happen after the surgery gets concluded. And a patient in a psychiatrist's office cannot know the exact outcome of their treatment. The customer response, therefore, becomes important to reduce the uncertainty, and buyers look for evidence of quality by drawing inferences. They look around whoever else has been serviced by that individual or that particular brand. Inferences come from the place, the people, the equipment, the communication materials, the symbols that it projects, the brand positioning of all things. It makes a complete amalgamation of all these. And finally, yes, the price of the service, because all of these things drive one big factor, which is perception. The perception leads to a certain sense of satisfaction or dissatisfaction at the end of that performed service. Marketing strategy when it comes to service is to ensure that service providers must manage the evidence of service being delivered and the quality of it, and tangibilize the intangible. So give them certain textures, feelers, and ability to express that yes, this was delivered, and get a certain nod from the end consumer. That conformance is important by emphasizing physical aspects like the facilities, the signage, the environmental design, employee apparel, collateral materials. A lot of things can be brought into play, which are signifiers, which are symbols, which give a sense of completeness to that particular task, and so therefore give the sense of a service being delivered fully. So which automatically leads to the biggest challenge of tangibilizing the intangible, and here certain brands have actually managed to pull this off. Apple's Genius Bar is one example where Apple tangibilized its customer service by creating the Genius Bar, which is a tech support station inside Apple stores and provides concierge-style customer support, making the abstract concept of technical assistance into a physical experience, because here you're interacting with a live person solving your problems in real time. So that actually has shifted the experience and shifted the way you perceive Apple and its people, And the way if you interact with any Apple Genius Bar employee, you'll understand that they're a different cut. They're not your regular tech support people who will give you very, very stylized answers. They have a unique mind of their own. They're able to get under the skin of the problem and they're knowledgeable enough to solve things. Similarly, financial institution buildings like banks and financial institutions often add tangible dimensions to their services by securing prestigious office addresses, and they create imposing building structures to convey a sense of stability and something that instills trust and faith in their intangible financial services, because wealth cannot be expressed. Is it the collection of gold coins or banknotes or the numbers in your account? No. It is a sense of the ability to expend financial amounts without having to think of it, because that is where true financial power comes by, because you know you will make more than what you are spending. Similarly, stadium naming rights become an example of how brands exert themselves. Many financial institutions, including Scotiabank, MetLife, Chase, and Bank of America, have paid over $100 million, sometimes even over $500 million for naming rights to major stadiums. You'll see in India an example of naming metro stations has taken up a big portion of corporate ownership, and it also allows them to give a certain projection, especially done by banks and financial services and gaming platforms and a variety of others who try and get benefit and viewability from doing all these activities. It gives a clear physical manifestation of the brand for consumers to connect with. So, what is the distinctive characteristics of services is that they are inseparable from the physicality of the product. So, you will see simultaneous production and consumption, because the service is consumed as it is being created and produced. Unlike physical goods that have to be manufactured, inventoried, stored, distributed and later consumed, services typically get produced on the spot and consumed at that very moment. And the provider is part of the service. So, the service provider becomes an integral part of the entire service experience overall. And a haircut is something that can't be stored. It can be at best clicked a photo of, and that's where you can store it as a reference for what happened at that particular point in time. But it can be produced with the barber present and the skill of the barber being able to execute it every single time over multiple experiences. Again, there is a provider-client interaction when it comes to this, and the interaction between provider and client becomes a special feature of the services marketing, and it creates the unique challenges and opportunities for service differentiation, because that is the point where you are interacting with each other. And so, therefore, the service giver is able to describe what they are going to give, how it is differentiated and the benefits of the same to the end consumer. When clients have strong provider preferences, the provider can raise prices to ration limited amount of time which they share. So, several strategies exist to address inseparability limitations, including working with larger groups so that you can maximize one service being distributed amongst a lot of people. You work faster or train more service providers, so lots of people can provide services within your particular geographical space, and implement yield management pricing strategies, so that if you pay higher, then you get exclusivity. If you pay lower, then you're part of the herd. So, yield management is about optimizing service capacity. By definition, what is yield management? It is a pricing strategy that aims to optimize customer demand based on the available capacity of the service provider. So, if there is one person and lots of people are claiming that they want service from him, they will have to pay a premium for their time. Services cannot be inventoried. They have variable pricing which helps match consumer demand with company capacity. The more scarce the service, the higher the pricing. In the same way, there are common applications. So, resorts use yield management to ensure that they manage seasonal fluctuations better. Restaurants do it for the weekend demand, and airlines for holiday travel periods like Thanksgiving, Christmas and such like. By varying their prices, companies influence customer demand to match their capacity at that given point of the year. How does it get implemented? Service providers set higher price points or lower ones where consumer demand matches the company capacity. You have more people coming on board, you want a ticket, pay more. If you have less people, then you get the tickets for a much lesser manageable cost. So therefore, discounting during off-peak times and premium pricing during high demand periods, effectively spreading demand more evenly across available capacity. So there is a distinctive characteristic of services and how their variability actually affects the entire transaction. If there is a quality variation, the quality of services depends on who provides them. Inside a salon, different barbers will have different clientele because certain people will like the kind of haircut which one particular barber provides vis-a-vis the other person, as well as when, where and to whom. So it is that kind of a transactional interaction. This makes services highly variable compared to standardized products. So it's difficult to set an experience separate when it comes to a particular service. There is an interactive experience because service delivery is interactive by default, and actual services received by customers vary across individual customers and service providers. Therefore, inconsistency challenges are there. There is also a brand risk. Service firms know that variability in their performance puts them at risk. It can damage their brand reputation if customers receive inconsistent experiences across different locations or different service providers within the branded space. Quality guarantees are also difficult here because customers need potential variability to be out of the recommendation format, and so some firms offer service guarantees that may reduce customer perceptions of risk when choosing who they are going to go with. So Hilton had a major battle to win against service variability. The problem was between 1964 and 2006, Hilton Hotels and Hilton International Company operated independently, resulting in inconsistent brand experiences. Research showed that brand standards in Europe were very different from those in the US, and quite frankly, a bit slacker in Europe where it was more chill. But US was very stringent on the same lines. So hence, when Hilton initiated H360, a comprehensive project to review everything from breakfast fare to bath amenities, lobby decor, Wi-Fi service, hotel architecture and handling of customer complaints, the company's hotels worldwide came under the purview of this. And how did it get implemented? One brand, one vision, one culture. So they implemented the same seamless experience through training and implementation wherever Hilton's properties were. So Hilton branded hotels in the US and abroad were required to upgrade to Hilton standards where necessary or be dropped from the Hilton system, they would be disowned. So the results of this was they protected the brand and served the company well and increased their revenues and strengthened the brand equity also, and ensured that customers received a consistently high quality experience regardless of whether they were in Denver or in Delhi. Now, controlling service quality variability, how do you go about doing it? You invest in hiring and training. You ensure you have the right kind of people doing your job. There, if you get better trained people, they give you 6 key characteristics. They give you competence, they give you courtesy, credibility, reliability, responsiveness, and obviously they are better at communication things. So standardizing service processes also helps. Here you create service blueprints and help map out the service process, customer contact points and evidence of service from the customer's perspective. So you walk them through that particular journey and ensure this happens. These blueprints identify potential pain points. So it predicts where things can go wrong and it solves at a pre-imagined level all the problems that can actually arise, and therefore it tries and projects a zero defects culture. Now, you can monitor customer satisfaction through whatever you're doing in service quality, and so therefore service variability by employing suggestion complaint systems, consumer service, and third party comparison shopping, which also is called mystery shopping. You don't know if a person walking in is actually reviewing the services of that particular place. So, you develop customer information databases and systems for more personalized services, especially online. So, service blueprint for hotel stay would take you necessarily through all these spaces. First, you would check in, then you would look at room quality, then you would inspect room service, all the amenities, and finally, once you're done, you're checking out. So, through this entire workflow, you will see how each of these play out, and you would mark them or rate them for whatever your capabilities are. Now, there are distinctive characteristics of services where perishability comes into play. The challenge in this case is services cannot be stored, so that perishability becomes a problem when demand fluctuates. Public transportation companies must own more equipment to accommodate rush hour demand, and if demand were even throughout the day. Value expiration, because service value exists only at the time of delivery. Beyond that, doctors charge patients more for missed appointments. The service's value or the doctor's availability is something they could have actually tended to another patient too, and that existed only at that specific time and can't be stored for later use. It's not like you salt meat and keep it in the refrigerator for a summer day. Then there is the management approach. You demand or yield management becomes critical for service businesses. The right services must be available to the right customers at the right places, times and prices to maximize the profitability in the face of perishability challenges, which means that the right kind of demand needs to be met with the right kind of supply of services, and they need to meet the right kind of customers at the appointed places, times and prices which are mutually acceptable. How do you manage service demand therefore? You keep a differential pricing like airlines do, like nowadays trains also do, and you can get surge pricing to meet these particular peak and off-peak period, and you can do this by varying the prices. Low matinee movie prices, weekend discounts for car rentals, and dynamic pricing for toll roads that can change every few minutes based on traffic conditions. These are examples. Again, you cultivate non-peak demand. So, you create new demand during slower periods. McDonald's, for example, promotes the breakfast service, which is earlier on, and hotels offer mini vacation weekends to fill rooms during traditionally slower periods. You offer complimentary services, which is a padding to whatever is your regular. So, these alternatives are for waiting customers such as cocktail lounges in restaurants and ATMs in banks. They improve the waiting experience for overall customer satisfaction. Similarly, you implement reservation systems so that people can plan beforehand and experience their entire service. So, airlines, hotels, physicians employ these extensively to control the consumer flow and maximize the capacity which is going to be utilized. Indianapolis Zoo had a dynamic pricing format, and they succeeded to increase the price from $8 to $30. They had 67% weekday visits as a result of the dynamic lower pricing during weekdays, and 57% of guests who visited on weekdays were increased because of the dynamic pricing aspect, and they saw a clear 12% revenue growth because admission actually gave them that better yield management output. So, these are factors which the Indianapolis Zoo implemented and got benefits out of. How do you manage service supply? You put in certain part-time employees who serve peak demand with flexible staffing. At peak time efficiency, you focus on essential tasks so that you are delivering the minimal agreed service levels. Then at consumer participation level, you engage consumers to service co-creation, and you get them to feel part of the brand and collaborating into it as well. Then you've got shared services where you pool resources with other providers and everybody has a win-win out of it. And you plan for expansion where you invest in facilities for future growth. So all of these things together help a brand manage its service supply. On the supply side, several businesses implement several strategies to better match capacity with demand. Colleges add part-time teachers when most students are there. Stores hire extra clerks during holiday periods. Efficiency routines allow employees to perform only essential tasks during peak times, and increased consumer participation, that is self-service, frees up a lot of service providers' time as well. New service realities that we look into take a lot of everyday consideration from what is happening in the world around us. There is clear technology integration into our lives today, and here digital transformation of the service delivery format is something which people are quickly understanding and adopting. Customers are empowered, they are informed with higher expectations. Hence, more information and clarity and a frankness about what the service really does for them improves the ability and the brand essence here. And when customers become co-producers, they participate in the service creation, and so therefore they take a certain amount of load off of the main people who are providing the service. And if there is employee engagement, you motivate your staff to deliver superlative experiences. So this entire pyramid then helps you create better benchmarks when it comes to providing services. Technology is extremely becoming important. It is transforming traditional services. For example, you will now see customers rarely visiting a physical branch or interacting with employees because they can do a lot of things in a DIY or do-it-yourself format. The COVID-19 pandemic actually accelerated digital transformation. A lot of countries picked up digital transformation like India did with its QR code based payment system, and that is something which has transformed digital payments in the entire country. So similarly, integrating digital technology and fundamentally changing how to deliver value to customers was something which was executed. Similarly, they were enhancing productivity because of technological influence, and it made service workers more productive. However, most companies avoid pushing technological efficiency so hard that it reduced the perceived quality and the human touch that many customers still value, because they want that kind of interaction. They are comfortable with that particular format. Many companies have introduced live chat features to blend the technology. Blending is critically important, where a human voice and technological aspects are married and they work hand in glove. This creates a balance between efficiency and personalization when it comes to the service delivery. Twilio is one example, very powered modern communication services. They have a comprehensive platform. Twilio offers clients a comprehensive, customizable and easy to use platform to automate and streamline communications with customers, collaborators, employees and co-workers across multiple channels. So these could be phone, these could be email, these could be messaging, these could be social, a variety of aspects coming into play here. There are business applications to the same. Coca-Cola uses Twilio to dispatch service technicians. Trulia uses it for click-to-call apps connecting buyers with agents. EMC uses it to send texts and when IT services go down, and Airbnb uses it to text information about renters to hosts. And they have now expanded their services into more platforms. So here they're building on its communication platforms, which is at the core of their offering. And here they have included text, voice, video, chats and messaging apps. Twilio has expanded to include cloud-based call center services which run typically on VoIP. There is digital payment processing and email capabilities through acquisition of SendGrid, which is into this particular space. So benefits of technology aid the proficiency of service delivery overall, and there is true interactivity in this space because the internet and cloud computing enable firms to provide the services offerings by allowing for genuine two-way communication between companies and customers in real time. And this creates more dynamic and responsive services, and it all happens in real time, like I said. And personalization can also happen. So technology takes data from consumers as per every transaction with their consent, and customer specific and situational personalization can happen of these services. Companies can tailor offerings to individual preferences, past behaviors which have been observed, current contexts in which they are operating, and more relevant and valuable experiences can be created for each customer. Real-time adjustments can also be made because digital platforms allow for real-time adjustments of a firm's offerings based on how the customer is responding to that particular scenario, what has been their history and usage pattern, and if there is something which has suddenly changed in the immediate environment. The agility helps companies to stay responsive to customer needs and also be ready for market shifts, which again brings us back to being prepared. Why does the digital space allow you more preparation and more nimbleness? Because you are in tune with happenings as they happen live, and that helps you tide over volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This is something, if you are in the space of business and in the space of marketing and in the space of design and thinking and transformation for any organization, any entrepreneurial venture, VUCA is a thought process. It is a lensing for you to imbibe into your approach. It keeps you more aware, gives you situational awareness, a level playing field, and the view of it from a bird's eye view. So that is why this understanding keeps you more adept. It increases your alacrity and how you can deal with that particular space. So as companies collect, store and use more information about customers, they enable these benefits, and there are certain concerns also about security and privacy. These also are natural to come in. So companies incorporate proper safeguards and reassure customers that the private information will be kept secure. So strategies for managing service quality: hire the right people, people with the right kind of attitude, with the right kind of training and the aptitude for providing service. Train them extensively, train. Continuously go about giving them that particular set of service skills and knowledge, give them more practical things to deal with, wrap their heads around that. You standardize your process so that the experience does not get diluted and the brand is perceived in a certain specific way which is consistent, and you create service blueprints and always listen. So hence you are gathering feedback and improving continuously. So this helps employees understand their roles in delivering exceptional customer experiences regardless of whether they interact directly with customers or they are receiving certain delayed information pieces. Now there are 6 characteristics of quality service personnel which needs to be taken into consideration by any business manager, and they need to think these things through very clearly. First is competence. They have to possess the required skills and knowledge to perform the service. So technical expertise cannot be dealt with. This is a deal breaker. And problem solving ability, because things may arise. This is on the ground, immediate, in your environment. So you have to have the aptitude and attitude to solve problems as you go along. And you need to know what you're doing. So your product knowledge has to be immaculate. The other bit is courtesy. You have to be kind. You have to understand that you are in the service space and hence you are providing. Hence, your respectfulness cannot be compromised. You have to be considerate and have a friendly attitude towards customers. You have to be polite. You respect your customer and your demeanor should be friendly. You need to speak. You need to communicate. So, clear with your explanations, listen very actively, understand what they are about and how to solve those things, and use appropriate language to address situations. Similarly, you have to be credible, which means your company reputation is topmost. You have to have a personal integrity as an individual, and whatever communication you do, do not lie. Be honest about it. You have to be responsive as well. So, be on time, be attentive and be proactive. Before somebody thinks whatever can be done, you should be on top of the ball and provide proactive assistance. Reliability wise, there should be consistency in the way you work, you should be accurate in your approach, and you should be a person who can be depended upon in times of need. So, these things define what qualities are required of great service personnel. And when you're tangibilizing the intangible, there are certain brand elements which also give a lot of comfort to consumers because they have felt nice about the brand once. Now they want to continue feeling nice, and so therefore they will look for those iconographies, those symbols, and all of these things help keep them in place in their minds. When they see something of that side, they are going to remember those symbols and they are going to remember what comes with it, the expectation and the memory. So, all of these things help service providers choose brand elements such as logos, symbols, characters, slogans, and make their services and key benefits more tangible. United Airlines, for example, says friendly skies. Allstate says good hands. Merrill Lynch says bullish nature. And so there is a lot of contextualizing because of certain aspects of services getting a form and factor which makes them suddenly more visible and suddenly more relatable to consumers, which is how you tangibilize the intangible and create magical fantasies in its theme park. Disney is a master at this. Retailers like Dick's Sporting Goods and Bass Pro Shops create immersive environments that bring their service offerings to life through themed stored designs and interactive elements. So, this is how you balance the technology and human touch. The technology advantage is that technology enables service providers to scale operations, reduce costs, and offer 24/7 availability. The digital interface can provide consistent experiences and collect valuable data as you go along with the entire experience to improve service quality over time. Self-service technologies empower customers to complete their transactions at their own pace and convenience and result in higher satisfaction for routine interactions. The human element again gives it a little nuance, and despite technological advances, the human touch remains crucial for complex problem solving because people tend to see a human solving things more emotively and understand their scenarios better than any machine-based solutions can today. So, they get a lot of emotional support, and over time you can actually build relationships with the brand because of the human angle to things. Companies must avoid pushing technological efficiency so hard that they reduce the perceived quality of what is on offer. Amazon has innovative technology in online retailing, but also keeps customers extremely satisfied when problems arise, even if they don't actually talk to an Amazon employee. So, there are safety and security privacy concerns in digital services, data protection challenges, privacy expectations, trust building, and regulatory compliance. So, all of these factors are things which tech and data based organizations and transformed businesses must keep in the core of their offering set, and they have to constantly have security measures in place and reassure customers that they're putting in their best efforts to keep the information secure and build trust in digital service interactions. And helping customers come onto the bandwagon, becoming co-production collaborators in services will get you to get them as a resource where they provide information and preferences that shape the experience. They also become the collaborators by actively participating in designing or customizing the experience, and you turn them into producers at times. So, customers can perform some of these service tasks themselves and give them a sense of quality control. So, you hear their feedback and provide future service delivery through that particular advent. So, here what you can do is you can range from filling out their own medical records, bagging their own groceries, and over time co-production can improve service efficiency, reduce costs, and even increase customer satisfaction by giving them more control over their own experience. Service technologies like self-checkout lanes, online baking, airline check-in kiosks are common examples of customer co-production and benefit both the service provider and the customer together. Online reviews help customers best nowadays. So, digital is one space where brands and customers interact the most, and friend recommendations, which is word of mouth, is the next. The company website gives a certain amount of solidity and trust. Social media is content that keeps it relevant and newsworthy. Professional reviews at times tend to stick if they are honest, and company advertising is the least thing that people are looking for nowadays. So, hence employee engagement in service excellence becomes important, because employees are the first consumers of the company's offerings, of the brand's offerings. If they are convinced, they will sell it ahead. So, there is internal service quality, and here the excellence begins with creating a positive work environment for employees. These employees, if they feel valued and supported, will provide exceptional service, and so therefore you can do this through proper tools, training and recognition, and the service profit chain begins there. So, you establish a clear link between employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction and profitability. All these things are intertwined. Engaged employees stay longer, they reduce the turnover costs, so there is lesser churn, lesser investment on training, and develop deep knowledge of customers and services, improving the service quality overall. And when you are empowering your customers, they lead service organizations to make decisions that resolve customer issues without escalation. This autonomy gives them employee satisfaction and enables faster, more personalized service recovery when actual problems really happen. So, service recovery wise, you turn failures into opportunities. So, let us say something goes wrong, you proactively monitor for such issues, you respond quickly before it escalates into a full blown situation. Your employees are empowered to take on the spot resolution decisions and compensate the people who are affronted with the fair compensation and appropriate remedies, which are immediately implemented, and you learn and improve, so that in the future this becomes part of your service delivery blueprint and you do not make the mistake again. So, here is how you will measure your service quality. You will have 5 serve qual dimensions, which are key aspects of service quality measurement. You will have 22 question items which measure standard instrument points. You will have a net promoter score where you need to at least hit a 9, and a 360-degree feedback approach where you are getting inputs from all various sources. Key takeaways for service excellence expand into: understand how the service is unique, engaging the employees and customers in a positive way, you leverage your technology wisely to be in your favor, and you measure and improve continuously using the feedback you are receiving to enhance the service quality. With all of these things, there is much more to explore when it comes to services, and we will be delving deeper into this aspect in the upcoming module. Until that time, I will take my leave.
Hello and welcome to this piece of literary snippet. We usually know William Shakespeare as the most revered figure in the history of English literature. But we often tend to forget that he had hated figures in literature. And here I'm those boys and girls who have to memorize long sections from Shakespeare or Julius Caesar before they can exams. But I'm also talking about people who are the Tolstoy considered the writings of Shakespeare to be, and I quote, immoral, vulgar, and George Bernard Shaw absolutely loathed he did Homer. But perhaps criticism about Shakespeare is more damaging than that Shakespeare is a marvelous storyteller, provided told him the story earlier. It is particularly damaging because it is true. None of Shakespeare's plays contain whatsoever. They are all written using stories. Now, does that diminish as a dramatist? Well, I'll leave you to decide. See you in the next episode.